Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this OEM R7 360 has got to be one of the most basic cards I've ever seen. It looks as though someone's glued a CPU heatsink and fan to the cheapest PCB they could find. Truth is though, I kind of like it. We took a brief look at its performance the other day as part of an HP pre-built, but in today's one we're pairing it with a much faster processor and we're using it with the custom AMD drivers. Officially, this is a legacy card supporting up to driver version 22.6.1. Today, it's running the 22.10.1 October drivers thanks to a custom release. Back in 2015, some versions cost less than £100 here in the UK. It was very much an entry-level 1080p product. I wouldn't expect a low-cost GPU like this to still be any good 8 years later, but I guess we'll find out. It does have DX12 support after all, so actually starting games shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so we're here in Cyberpunk. I think we'll go with low. Crowd density at low, doesn't really need to be, quite a CPU intensive setting. Graphics low, preset low, texture low, everything else is low. Just to be sure, I've actually set the FSR option to ultra performance because I don't really think we're going to get an acceptable frame rate. I haven't tried this yet. The game has started, which is always a good sign. If I just click if we just continue here, I did not expect anything more than 20 FPS. I mean, I know we're running with FSR enabled, but seriously, the game looks better like this, I reckon, than it does at native, say, 900p, perhaps 720p in some areas. I think it's certainly performing better. Whoops, terrible bit of driving. Oh dear. Oh, okay. Van just flipped itself over, but I was not expecting this. 40 FPS at least. I've started the benchmark, so I'll have the exact figures up on the screen, but this card was an entry-level card in 2015. I mean, it was, some people called it a 750 Ti competitor. I'm not really sure which one was better. I don't think the 750 Ti would do as well these days. We've probably tested it. We've probably tested it with FSR. I can't remember what happened, but I certainly was not expecting this result for the R7 360 here. Don't forget that this has also got 2 gigs of GDDR5. I think this is another case of thank goodness for FSR, really, because it's really helped out. I'm assuming the AMD custom drivers are doing something here too. Even in this busier area, look, we're dropping into the 30s. I'm going to get out of the van and see how things change. I mean, look at that, it's getting even better. Almost 50 FPS just then. Wow, I was not expecting this for the R7 360. Certainly not to start with, and certainly not in Cyberpunk. So if it's doing this well here, whoops, who knows how well it will do in the next test. We can only find out. Okay, so here we are in Spider-Man Remastered. I've gone with 1080p to start with. This also benefits from FSR 2.1, so again, to play it safe, I've gone with Ultra Performance. There is a very low preset option, but I thought we'd stick with low, just to give it more of a sort of visual edge, make it look a bit better, as you can see by Spider-Man here, looking nice and crisp. It's not at all, it's very blurry, but let's get into the game and see how it does. I mean, again, look at this. I mean, it's not fantastic by any means, but we're seeing at least 30 frames per second. I definitely expected this one to perform worse than Cyberpunk, and it is doing so. I always say Cyberpunk's the most intensive game, and then I forget about Spider-Man. But we're still seeing at least 30 frames per second, even in these sort of busier areas, which is really nice to see. This is with Ultra Performance FSR as well, remember? So, I mean, we could drop the resolution even more and still enable FSR, but at that point, I mean, it's going to be an even blurrier mess than what you're seeing now. I do think, however, that this is a pretty good experience given the hardware that we're using, given that this was a sub £100 or around about $100 card when it came out, 8 years ago? So to still be achieving this, I think it's pretty decent. I mean, it is 2 gigabytes as well. It has 2 gigs of VRAM. That's pretty much maxing out here with the low preset. I'm actually going to jump into the settings and see if very low makes a difference. If we just change that down to very low, will this actually improve things? Oh, okay. Let me start the benchmark again, because it looks as though, that does help. I didn't think it would, it still drops towards 30 in those, but look, that is quite a little bit better in those busy areas there. Yeah, I would stick with very low. It doesn't look too much worse than low, but it does sort of give you a little bit of a performance boost. It feels like it. We'll know for sure once those figures are up on screen. I have cleaned the card as well since using it in that HP video. I've also repasted it. So this temperature that you're seeing, 67 degrees, is sort of a best case scenario. I will say it got to the same temperature before I cleaned it, so it didn't really help, but it has made it a little quieter. I don't really know how that's happened, but yeah. I mean, I think very low, 1080p with ultra performance FSR is best for Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, but still more playable than I thought it would be going into it, that's for sure. Okay, so here we are in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt with the next gen update version 4.01. This is the Steam version of the game, taking no chances once again. FSR 2 set to ultra performance, everything else is just stuck on low. Yeah, there have been a few performance patches since this first came out, and it seems to have improved things. I'm using DX12 mode here. You can choose DX11, but I'm using DX12 because that gives us access to FSR, so let's see if it helps. Well, this I did not expect. I mean, look at this, we're hitting nearly 60 frames per second right about here. I mean, I'm going to start moving in a minute, and you're probably going to notice a little bit of stutter. That generally seems to be the case with The Witcher 3. What I think I'll go this way because it's sort of into a more crowded area. It really isn't that bad. I mean, the percentile lows are probably going to be quite bad, the ones you see on screen, because of the little hiccups that you see with the frame time graph. But honestly, that wasn't even as bad as I was expecting. Let me just get out of the gate here and call Roach, wherever he may be, probably in the middle of the river. That's where he usually is. Is that him? He's down there. Look, I mean, come on. Up the stairs. No. What are you doing? Right, if I just run over here and then we call him again, he'll just miraculously... Is Roach a boy or a girl? I still don't... Why don't I know this information? I mean, this is wonderful. It doesn't look brilliant. I mean, there are a few blurry edges around everything, but apart from that, it's actually really... quite nice. I definitely consider playing about with the various settings to see how high you could push things, maybe just individual settings, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, I'm definitely happy with this. Maybe I'm too easily pleased, but considering this was once an entry-level card, the fact that the next-gen update is still running well on this thing, well, it speaks volumes about this whole thing, and it speaks volumes perhaps about the custom drivers too. Not sure how much of a difference they'll really make across the board, but this could be the R7 360's own doing, to be honest. It might just have held up quite well over time. Certainly seems like it. Okay, so Hogwarts Legacy. You might remember we tested the 750 Ti before, and there was an issue where choosing the low textures made them just look like mud, basically unreadable. Things were unreadable. Things close up looked horrendous. It looks like that might be the case here, judging by the book in the background, but I have gone with FSR performance. This only has FSR 1, so the upscaling isn't as good, it won't look as sharp, but everything for now is at its lowest. We might have to change the texture quality soon, but let's just see how low does. Oh, okay, you know what, yeah, everything sort of looks like plastic. I mean, things are just missing here. Look, I mean, this isn't really... What we're going to have to do, just like we did with the 750 Ti, is change the textures back to Ultra to make things actually usable. Oh, do you know what? My mistake. It just looks like mud anyway. Look at his face. Yeah. Do things look a bit better? I don't actually think they do. So we were better off just keeping things at low, to be honest, because this definitely does not help. I'll change back to low before I start the benchmark again. I mean, from what I'm seeing, there was a bit of a change there, but the performance hasn't actually changed all that much. In fact, it sort of had the opposite effect. Things have suddenly become worse. I don't even know how that's possible. I'm not sure if that's the custom drivers at play here or just the nature of the card. I imagine it's the card. A 2GB aging GPU, not ideal in 2023. But I mean, look, if you want to play Hogwarts Legacy like this, you certainly can do, providing you turn everything down to low, and then, sorry, I can't stop laughing at the plastic textures. If you turn everything down to low and enable FSR, you're going to have an okay time, and there's still a certain charm about it, to be honest. It is exactly like when you install low-end Skyrim mods, to be fair. I think this is quite pleasant on the eye, especially that sort of scenic view there. Not bad, not ideal, but we could get away with this for sure. Let's move on to the next game. Okay, so there's no FSR in Elden Ring, so I've actually just gone with 1280 by 720 low quality settings, or the low preset. Basically everything is at low. Let's get into the game and see how things perform. I don't think this one's going to go that well. Alright, so sort of 30 FPS, 29, I mean that's close enough. Okay, I spoke too soon. Yeah, it's not. Let's get into a bit of combat to see how things change here. A few rolls across the floor as I normally do. Oh, we've suddenly got a boost in frame rate there. Sorry if you can hear the mouse clicking. Not the best at Elden Ring, especially with a frame rate that's inconsistent, but there we go. You know what, it's not too bad. If you really wanted to play Elden Ring with the R7 360, you could do. I mean, I've certainly experienced worse. Okay, so here we are in Forza Horizon 5. Remember that old sweet spot back in the day, 900p? Well, that's what we're running at here, 900p or 1600 by 900 with the low preset. I just realised I forgot to show you the settings at the start, but nothing else has been changed. 900p low preset, that's all there is to it. TAA is also enabled, that enabled itself by default. I did try 1080p and FSR, but FSR actually made things run worse with the R7 360 in this game. Not really sure why, but that just seems to be how it goes. So yeah, 900p native with the low setting seems to be a pretty nice place to be in Forza. You could of course go down to 720p if you wanted to. As you can see, we're dipping towards the sort of mid-40s now, but the game is still holding up well overall. This is very well optimised, I always say that, but it is a VRAM hog, so any VRAM you've got, especially if you've got a card with just 2 gigs of it, well, it's going to chew through that almost immediately. As you can see, we're using exactly 2 gigabytes. Okay, so by default, if you choose the minimum preset in COD Modern Warfare 2, then it's going to actually halve this render resolution. So I've taken this back up to 100%. It is still, well, basically everything else is still on minimum. FSR is enabled and set to performance mode. Everything else, as you can see, is turned way down low. So let's get into the game and see how it does. Well, again, a surprising result. 60 FPS. I'm not going to pay too much attention to that frame rate counter because I will get wiped out any second now. Goes without saying, really, doesn't it? Like that, for example. It does depend on the map as to the frame rate that you're going to see, but I think for the most part you should see a pretty stable FPS figure. So yeah, this is a pretty decent result. What is going on here? I'm going to get wiped out any second for sure. Hello? Oh. Hello? Anyone? No? Right, let's get down here, see what we can do. Yes, come on. Oh, no. I mean, you could turn the native resolution down if you wanted to. I prefer to play with FSR. Not all the time, it depends on the game. But here, I think it's a good choice for COD. So, yeah. Oh, look at that. There we go. And you can still remain competitive, as you can see, with this frame rate, which touches on 60 most of the time. Right, when it comes to Red Dead Redemption, we are limited to 900p. We have that video memory limit in place. We could adjust things from the INI file, I'm sure, but it's really not worth it because, as you'll see in a minute, or as I'm assuming based on previous tests with other similar cards, I don't think we're going to get much beyond 30 FPS. But let's jump into the game and see how we do. Well, okay, this is actually quite surprising. I mean, the textures look like mud. That is mud down there, but I mean, everything looks like mud, to be honest. Anything other than ultra textures never looks brilliant in Red Dead Redemption 2. Though saying that, it is certainly playable here, even in and around Valentine, which is quite a demanding area. Traditionally, it's more demanding on the CPU, and we've got plenty of processing power here. But again, that VRAM limitation, that 2 gigs that the R7 360 possesses, is going to be a bit of a problem. That said, you are still able to enjoy yourself with a card like this. If you pick one of these up cheap and you want to play a few games, it is definitely doable even in 2023. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to last into the future. There will of course be some games that run well, some games that don't. This is a card that supports DX12, so everything should hopefully start. It's just a matter of how well they actually run when they have started. To conclude, the R7 360 is still a surprising card, I think I'm going to have to say, in 2023. Not ideal for playing modern games. This could otherwise be known as the R9 360 if you find it inside an OEM PC. I think they're one and the same, if not they're very, very similar. So you should have a pretty similar experience with that. We do have those custom drivers installed, of course. Not sure that's going to make too much of a difference in a lot of titles, but it may have helped us out a little bit. Some surprising results all in all then, and all that's left to say is if you've enjoyed this video, leave a like on it, leave a dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.